Hello, I'm Neil Cottrell, President of the Joe Martin ALS Foundation.
And I'm Joby Martin. Joe Martin was my dad.
We are pleased to present Live Every Day, our signature annual fundraiser to you this year as a virtual event. We are especially proud to be celebrating our 15th anniversary this year and to be helping more families than ever today as they navigate ALS.
Tonight, in our first ever audio broadcast, I'll share the story of the small, important victories that we sometimes take for granted. These are the moments and building blocks that culminate into lives lived fully, despite the challenges of ALS.
Tonight's broadcast also serves as the first episode of a podcast we're launching entitled Small Important Victories, Living Actively with ALS. Through this podcast, we will be able to spread awareness and education about this challenging diagnosis to anyone, anywhere who tunes in. We are grateful to our distinguished partners for making our work and this special event possible. Thank you to Bank of America,
Atrium Health Foundation,
Carolina Asphalt,
and J.D. Goodrum General Contractors.
Thank you for your dedication to our mission.
We hope that you will consider making a gift tonight too, to help us meet our fundraising goal. Learn more about how to give and the impact of your gift by visiting the donate link below.
We are thrilled to celebrate the past 15 years and an exciting new chapter ahead with you. Thank you for being part of our mission and our caring community.
Thank you. Welcome to Small Important Victories, a podcast of stories about living actively with ALS. Narrative 1. Small but important victories. Dear Neil, just wanted to follow up with you to give praise to your caregiver, Sydney Simpson. She was here today at her appointed time and immediately began helping me to prepare my wife to take her bath. This was especially important because we, my wife's sister and I, had been trying to give her a bath since yesterday evening. My wife, for some reason, was reluctant to comply, but Sydney very calmly and sweetly began trying to assist her. So, with this kind of effort, Robin was willing to bathe. This was a small but important victory. I want to give your organization and Sydney a heartfelt thank you. The spouse of a person with ALS, 2022. The Joe Martin ALS Foundation grew from a seed of realization that ALS affects the whole family. Since 2007, the foundation has helped thousands of people hold on to purpose, joy, and hope as they face the small, everyday moments that can make an ALS diagnosis such a challenge. Our mission is to turn each of these moments into small but important victories for people with ALS and for their families. With ALS, mobility is a challenge. Since 2007, we have been getting people outside, to the table at the restaurant, to the baseball game, into the garden. With ALS, simple movement is a challenge. We lift arms and heads to strengthen muscles and to strengthen spirit. ALS can shake the foundation of a family. Games of catch in the yard with dad who has ALS are a challenge. Learning to drive or walking down the aisle might not look the same. The Joe Martin ALS Foundation makes it possible for kids and teens to come to Joe's Camp to meet other kids and some adult volunteer counselors who understand what it's like to have a parent or a close loved one with ALS. With ALS, future plans and lifelong dreams can become murky. The Joe Martin ALS Foundation ensures that people with ALS can make the trip of a lifetime and build priceless memories with their loved ones. We pick up the phone to plan the trip, book the hotel, ask the questions about accessibility that a loved one might not think to ask. ALS affects a whole community. On any given day, there are 60 to 90 people living with an ALS diagnosis in Mecklenburg County. Nationally, 5,000 to 7,000 people are diagnosed each year. From the start, this has been a truly unique organization. There is no other organization like ours in the United States. And thanks to you, we're growing. In January of this year, we began serving people with ALS in Winston-Salem, Greensboro, and High Point. Today, we are helping more people than ever with ALS celebrate small and important victories because we know ALS, and we've experienced challenges in 15 years that have cemented our resolve to come alongside every family who calls on us. We have leaned on you, our community. You have made these victories possible. Narrative 2. It all started in Joan Martin's basement. They said it couldn't be done, but our closest supporters knew that it could. Joe Martin, my father, had created the plans for the foundation in the days after his retirement. He knew that he had been blessed to have the care and support that helped him live actively with ALS in the many years since his diagnosis. He also knew that few families could navigate the financial and logistical challenges of ALS without support. Dad died in 2006, but the seed of his vision had been planted, and the foundation that would bear his name was in the works. This is where the community came alongside the foundation to lift the vision off the ground. Neil Cottrell approached Dad's close friend and colleague, Hugh McCall, for input and advice as he set out to make the dream and the plans a reality. Mr. McCall turned around with not only the advice and wisdom needed to launch the Joe Martin ALS Foundation, but with the seed money to help us follow that advice. What did he say that day? You need stories to share with people, and you need to start working to tell those stories. The work started in Mom's basement with a computer and a cell phone on a belt holster. Visiting began to the first people with ALS who we would support with Joe Martin's voice of resolve urging, "Let determination be your guide. Keep your sense of purpose intact. Have faith." While the foundation faced an unknown future, Neil and the team provided care each day, lifting people with ALS, or PALS, from chair to bed, feeding meals, sending the family caregiver out the door for a few hours to shop or work or play, while they stayed with the PAL to stretch and talk and fill the solitude that can come with ALS with companionship. The heart logo we use today came from an early rendering of two hands embracing and enclosing a heart. If you watched my brother's Live Everyday speech last year, you would have heard the story of my father's homecoming after a week of tests and doctor's visits in Texas. The embracing hands, designed by Dad's nephew, were a symbol of love from the friends who met Mom and Dad on their lawn that afternoon. Today, they're a symbol of our whole community coming around the person with ALS and their family. The logo embodies the idea that people with ALS never walk alone. They are accompanied and surrounded by love, by understanding, and by the energy of a community who will remain by them in every moment of that journey. Those hands are yours as you've come around our foundation and the families we serve. A website was launched, a board of directors assembled, and soon the demand for our services meant that we needed to ensure we were sustainable. We held golf tournaments to raise money and began transporting pals to clinics in our van, inherited from Joan Martin. It became obvious early on that caregiving was desperately needed for pals, but that we were also helping whole families. We began hosting caregiving workshops and hired our first caregiver, Fee Stevenson, to reach more people with ALS who were calling on us. Fee is still working with us today. We started dreaming about expansion. Demand was consistent, and in 2010, it was time to explore a way to grow while holding on to our values and custom service delivery model, the same model that so many said was unsustainable in its design. Things like love, community, and service to others are never unsustainable. And we learned that from our supporters who stayed close to us during the earliest years and all the growing pains. We wanted to grow, but kept hearing that it would be too hard. We approached large fund holders who said that a model of free care could never work. We learned that we were the only group in the world trying to offer free home care specifically for people with ALS. Looking back now, we can see that individuals, many of you listening tonight, have sustained this organization. Neil and his team reached a point where they could taper down services or double down on Joe's vision. The golf tournament couldn't sustain the costs, and the demands were growing higher with each passing month that word about the Joe Martin ALS Foundation spread and as new cases of ALS were diagnosed. Our partnership with the ALS Clinic, which we had helped establish, was as strong as ever, but we remained a freestanding not-for-profit. Narrative 3. The double down. Growth one person at a time. We either had to contract or expand. Neil Cottrell describes a key moment in the organization's history. The foundation made a strategic decision, when money was tight and demand was high, to invest in people. The team were experienced in caregiving, but needed support and leaned into the creativity of a refreshed board and additional staff. With the first ever development director on board in 2014, the Joe Martin ALS Foundation began to share stories and gathered the community into the mission they had helped launch. The first annual Live Everyday fundraising dinner was held, and that allowed caregiving services to increase 30% in just 2 years. Narrative 4, A Bucket of Ice.
3, 2, 1!
As our YouTube account and social media in general also took off, another online campaign was generating a wildfire of awareness about ALS.
JT here. I am accepting the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge.
Starting in the summer of 2014, the Ice Bucket Challenge was a pivotal moment for many ALS-focused organizations. Pouring that bucket over their heads, celebrities and athletes drew the world's attention to this lesser-known disease and drove up fundraising numbers and awareness. The challenge encouraged nominated participants to be filmed having a bucket of ice water poured on their heads, and then to nominate others to do the same. A common stipulation is that nominated participants have 24 hours to comply or forfeit by way of a charitable financial donation.
We're not just casually holding all these $100 bills. We're actually going to put our money where our mouths are, and every single person you see here, we're going to donate on their behalf $100.
Thankfully, for many of us nonprofits, the nominees would donate even after dousing themselves in icy water. After 2014 and in the years following, the organization matured and expanded its reach even further. Joe's Camp, our camp for kids from families affected by ALS, was launched to give kids a chance to be kids and to meet other kids like them who understand home life when they're helping mom or dad care for their parent with ALS. Just as the organization was looking outward to grow into cities outside of Greater Charlotte, another surprise emerged, one that could have halted our dreams and caused us to pull back. COVID-19 came up quickly and unexpectedly, but became a season of silver linings for the foundation. We went virtual in nearly every way. Home care remained a priority for us, but with the high vulnerability of ALS patients, we had to learn how to support families remotely and ease back into in-person care safely. Caregiving workshops in Joe's Camp also went virtual, and the response was incredible. People with ALS can often feel homebound, but in this new pandemic environment, they were just like everyone else who was at home and connecting online. The community came alongside us again during this challenging season. So many individuals and families raised money for us, holding virtual walks and other challenges to ensure that we could pay our caregivers and press forward into our dream of growing outward from Charlotte to serve more and more families. Where are we now? 2 years ago, we were online and at home. Today, we're delivering services to more people with ALS than ever in double the number of locations across the Carolinas. We have 5 staff caregivers providing services to 30 families a week. 2 years ago, we gathered Joe's Camp participants around computer screens from a small handful of states. This year, we brought families from 6 states to North Carolina to drop their kids off absolutely free, to gather with kids and teens like them in the beautiful mountains outside of Charlotte. Today, we have more campers than ever from states across the southeastern U.S. who would never have joined us in person if they hadn't had that chance to log in with us on Zoom for our 3-day virtual camps during the summers of 2020 and 2021. When we asked, you answered. When we shared our need, you responded generously. Where storms have threatened our mission, you have propelled us a little bit further ahead than we could have planned. You came alongside. We have embraced the silver linings of this season. We have doubled down on the mission, and you made it possible. From a basement office to the homes of each person with ALS, from a Zoom call to a forest camp echoing with the calls of laughter of young voices cheering each other on. From the quiet of the room after hearing the news of an ALS diagnosis to the roar of fans cheering on our softball teams each year, you have come alongside to create countless small, important victories. You, our community, have brought to life something my father liked to say. Until this life truly ends, understand that on any given day, on this day, the possibilities are endless. To learn more about the work of the Joe Martin ALS Foundation and to support our mission, visit joemartinalsfoundation.org.
Hi everyone, my name is Catherine Fraser and I'm the Director of Development for the Joe Martin ALS Foundation. Thank you for tuning in to Live Every Day this year as we celebrate our 15-year anniversary through this audio broadcast with Joe B. Martin. As Joe B. shared, this broadcast also serves as the first episode of our new podcast, Small, Important Victories, Living Actively with ALS. We set an ambitious goal for this year's Live Every Day virtual event to raise $140,000 that will support our delivery of free care services to people with ALS not only in Greater Charlotte, but across the many new communities that we have begun serving in 2022 in partnership with the Wake Forest ALS Clinic. We invite you to be part of our work, as you have been since the beginning, by considering a gift that will sustain us in 2023. You can make a donation by visiting our website, www.joemartinalsfoundation.org/donate, or by clicking on a donate link on this Live Everyday event webpage, or finally by scanning the QR code that you can find on the pledge card or invitation that you may have received from us by mail. Don't forget to subscribe to our email newsletter and follow us on social media so you can stay informed about volunteer needs, events, and updates on next year's Joe's Camp and our softball rivalry challenge coming in 2023. Finally, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and help us spread the word about it as we are preparing an exciting lineup of new episodes. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Thank you for making it possible for people with ALS to live every day with purpose, with joy, and with hope. Good night.